Hello, all you all. Thank you for hanging out for one of the last sessions here. This has already been a jam-packed event. My name is John Winet. I'm the director of the Digital Studio for Public Arts and Humanities. I'm joined by my fabulous colleague, Jen Shook. In the English department, I think of her as the mayor of the English department. Graduate student division, but she just said it wasn't true. And Craven, who I suspect most of you came to see, is actually still in Chicago. He's our iCrew fellow and participant in the studio. Time allowing, we'll be able to show a 3-minute multimedia public digital humanities project he did for us. So in the next 15 minutes or so, we hope to provide an overview of some guiding principles and practical examples of what we feel are best practices for different kinds of student engagement in research and providing a public expression of the university's scholarship. And Jen couldn't be here this morning, but I have to say that Randy Bass set the table for us so well that I could almost just say what he said and then sit down. But being a college professor, you know that that's not what I'm going to do. Oops. So, for those of you who don't know, the studio, I'm going to read this from the slide. Oops. Sorry. We encourage public digital arts and humanities research and teaching at the university and across campus. We're a project of the Office of the Provost. We also see Iowa as very much in the wheelhouse of the public we wish to reach. We strive to encourage dialogue. This is one of my, oops. We may be on a timer that does this every 5 seconds. I'm going to let you fix that. Well, this will get me through the slides really quickly. We're looking for slide 5. Okay. And this is John. Let's have a round of applause for John. It's like all technology, I can't actually run anything. So, if this table were round, this would be an operative image of what we strive to do to encourage discussion, co-working, and collaboration within the studio. And it's a sentimental image now because Maeve's Cafe, formerly known as Capana, is no more. But it was one of our principal places. And I think I'm very interested in the collision, the chance meeting that happens between faculty and researchers and students that I think can be at the heart of the teaching learning experience and of the collegiate experience. Next slide. Thanks so much for doing this too. So often all of us end up teaching in classrooms like this, not optimum for the kinds of projects we're going to that we champion, but there are ways of working around that, and I think we need to do that. Next slide. And then Tile, of course, is a fabulous model, and here's the round table we were looking for. I think for the most part, students who learn in Tile classrooms, they're not impressed by the computers. They kind of get how cool the whiteboards are, but mostly they say, this is the first time since kindergarten I've gotten to sit at a round table and work with other students. Like, that is really the meat of it, I think. So you've heard most of this morning, but I think collaboration is a key principle. I think as an academic and as a researcher and as an artist, I know what I think, and I'm so interested in figuring out what you and I can think of and think up together. So it's an arithmetic where 1 + 1 equals a number greater than 2. That's really what the studio and my work is at the heart of. So to highlight some public, interdisciplinary, multimedia, collaborative projects We're just going to focus on one initially, and then you're going to hear about some great projects that Jen has been involved in English. But in 2008, the University of 2008, University of Iowa and Iowa City received the UNESCO World City of Literature designation. A year before the iPhone had been invented. It occurred to me that this was a fabulous opportunity to use a new platform, a new public platform with which to champion our city, our writers, and the work of our students. So in a number of classes that I've worked with, students have gathered all kinds of information in all media: photography, graphic design, video, traditional academic research, next slide, all of which processed in a class, and then it's now exported on a mobile web app called City of Lit. And I think one of the interesting things about this kind of work that students engage in is they're moving from what I think of as a narrowcast. I assign a paper, they write a paper, they give me the paper, I write words on a paper, I give it back to them. Suddenly they're thrown into an environment where they're working in groups, they're writing for a public, and the stakes are higher, and I think the opportunity for them to feel pride about their work is very great. I think there's a civic engagement piece to this as well, and a way of honoring place, the place that you are. This is extended into a project called Local Heroes, so that cities not known for literature, maybe they're known for something else. Artisanal cheese. There could be a City of Cheese app. That's the duck quacks. That means, am I out of time? Right. Multimedia Authoring, go there. Enjoy it. This is all about public scholarship. It is the mission of the University of Iowa, operating at its best. Next slide.
Oh, that's nice.
Take it away, Jen Shook. Thank you. No. Hold your applause. No time for applause.
No time for applause. No time for applause. All right. So, yes, I'm Jen Shook. I'm a PhD student in English and in the Center for the Book. I'm also a Twitter correspondent for the Digital Studio and a co-director of Imagining America's publicly active graduate engagement project. Imagining America is a consortium to which the University of Iowa belongs. And I am talking mostly about projects that my students did last semester in interpretation of literature, which is also known as Gen Ed Lit. It's the class that all university students who are not English majors take as their literary component. I will be highlighting this website, which my students spent all last semester working on, uilifeafter.wordpress.com, using WordPress.com's public and free templates and platforms. I also have developed similar projects in the past with the Derek Project, which is at derekprojects.wordpress.com if you want to go back and look at that. And I can certainly answer questions about those as well. But this past semester, I was teaching an honors section of interpretation of literature, and one of the national honors goals is they use the term service learning. I'm using the term public engagement or public humanities or public scholarship. And so I divided students into 5 research groups. And I did this I knew generally what 5 topics I wanted to do, and I did that because I based them on existing University of Iowa related public engagement projects. So I knew that there was a Walter Scott Waverly commemoration celebration happening. I knew that there was a big symposium with the University of Iowa Prison Projects Coalition happening. I knew that the studio is working on developing the AIDS Quilt Touch mobile app. I knew that we're continuing to celebrate the 5th centennial of the Civil War. Celebrate maybe is not the right word. And that the library's DIY history project kicked off with Civil War letters and diaries. And then I also was curious what other local memorials and commemorations there are out there. My class is themed on reading cultural memory because that's the work I'm doing as a graduate student, and I'm trying to make things as efficient as possible. Also, that's what I know about, so it's what I am good at sharing with them. So I tell them those 5 broad topics, and they give me their choices, 1 through 3. And in, I'd say, 3 years of doing this, almost every student has gotten to work on their first or second choices. So they feel like they have some buy-in. And then it's their job within their groups to narrow it down, which means within their groups they're working on research skills, they're figuring out how to narrow topics, they're figuring out how to figure out which things we have rich information on the web, in our library, in people nearby. They're figuring out how to connect their in-class work with these projects that are happening by going to events and talking to humans. And they're also figuring out things like project management and what are they best at in a group. And then I make them draw up a fairly loose contract saying these are the only requirements I give them. It drives them crazy because they're super open-ended but really simple sounding. I say you have to interview at least 2 humans. They can be experts or non-experts, you decide. You have to go to the library, either physically, preferably some combination of physically, the digital possibilities, and talking to librarians. And we go as a class to special collections, so I've sort of given them an intro to that. And then I say you have to each write 2 posts, one of which has to be a solid essay of a length that we agree on, and you have to have at least 1 video or audio component. And then I tell them what free tools are available, but they decide how much time they want to spend learning sound editing in Audacity, which is a great free platform, or video editing in YouTube, which uses Google Video Editor, or iMovie if they happen to have a Mac and they have iMovie available. Many of them could do things on their phones and tablets to edit, directly upload. It's really simple. They already have it. They don't need any new logins or purchases. I'm big on free. They also have to start learning what information is free and fair to use online. So they have to learn about fair use. They have to learn about copyright. We argue about what they really think about copyright. And then we say the reason you have to give citations in academic work is because it's fair to give credit. It also helps your readers to know where to go to get more information. So they start thinking about, oh, my audience is no different things. I have layers of audience. I should think about that when I'm writing. How do I deal with different layers of audience? Oh, I link out. So we spend a lot of time talking about tags and paratext and labels and links and how those relate to the reading that we're doing in class and the kind of background research that I make them do and the kind of background research that they want to do, because say they're reading Louise Erdrich's Plague of Doves and they know absolutely nothing about the history of the American Indian boarding school system. So they have no idea what's going on in the novel. And then I give them a little bit and they say, I wanted to find out more about that, so I did. Great. That's what people are doing, hopefully, when they come to your site. Yes, so these are the groups. You're welcome to check that out on your own. Would you advance to the next? Thank you, John. So I've talked a little bit already about some of the free things that they use. And then the more adventurous and determined of them start learning things like, okay, well, we're looking at prison issues. What do people my age know about prison? And then in some of them, obviously, will know a lot more than others, depending upon their families, because a surprising number of people have families in prison or have that you might not guess on the outset. But those who know nothing say, well, we could look at media representations. Oh, Orange is the New Black. Oh, it was originally a book. So I had one student who made a YouTube video of his roommates watching the trailer for Orange is the New Black, and then he interviewed them. That means my time is up. But he learned how to do the little pop-in window, and he learned how to make kind of, I think of them as pop-up videos, some child in the 80s, but how to make informational banners. I think I have one more slide. I'll point you to really quickly. Oh, yes. And then they also have to interview people. So there are interviews, for example, with the student coordinators of IC or the Week. So I also love that they get a sense of what their fellow students are doing that is amazing, and they can help boost the work that's happening at the university while also feeling a sense of investment and pride in what they themselves are doing. So for me, that the digital aspect and the learning aspect is intimately welded with the public scholarship aspect.
No, stay here, don't go away.
Don't go
So
away.
we have about 4 minutes. This is really like the hard drive and the tyranny of time. But you all got swag unless you came in late. And consider this a get into the studio for a meetup free.
Where is it?
We're in the main library
Oh.
on the northwest corner of the ground floor. It's an adventure to get there now, only
there it
because
is.
there's some construction going on. But we're happy to talk to you, and I highly recommend talking to Jen as well if you're thinking about trying out some different experiences with public scholarship or multimedia production in the classroom. And we can either have questions or we can look at Ari's fabulous video. Mark.
Just a quick question. Working together, are these in teams? I was a little bit uncertain about individual work as opposed to teamwork. That would be, how do you choose teams? How does one apportion the individual?
I do teams by request. So I tell them the 5 topics, I make them rank their choice of topics, and then I put them in team by topic. In some classes, I will know the students well enough to know I'm either trying to break up cliques who never talk to anybody else, or I have certain personalities who I want together. But still, usually I can get them their first or second choices with those things in mind. And then, sorry.
No, please.
Then they work together to come up with the contract of who's doing what. And they know that I'm grading certain things individually, like the essay blog posts I grade individually. They also do a reflection paper that doesn't go on the web that I grade individually. And sometimes there are certain other, like they'll have to do a pitch of ideas that I would grade individually. And then the rest I grade by group. They also do a presentation in class to which we sometimes invite the people who are involved, and those are group. So I have a layout that says this is a group grade, this is an individual grade, this is a group grade, this is an individual grade.
We're not posted on Icon, is that it?
No, it's all posted on this WordPress site. So it's totally public. I do use Icon for things like interview questions. So since I have to talk to people, we spend a lot of time talking about etiquette, about sensitivity. I had students researching the 1991 school shootings, so we spent really a lot of time talking about, like, who can you ask what questions and how do you ask and how do you, but also just basic professionalism. You're asking somebody for an interview, how do you write that email? You should probably give them your phone number before you go to meet them in case something happens, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And so just to give you a different answer, I use John Cage's chance operation technique. So I tell students this collaboration isn't for the rest of your life. It's for 10 weeks, and we draw it randomly. And if it looks way off, then we draw again. The grading thing, which I so don't care about grades, and our students so care about them, we're starting to engineer more and more complicated things. So right now, I teach a class with 160 undergraduates. It's a first-year seminar called the Passport Project. One thing to note about it is all the students were born in 1996 or 97, which for those of us who are 1,000 years old, it requires some really thinking through what is their experience base. But anyway, it's 13 classes and 12 assignments, and that comes out to 25. And next year, if you come to class or if you do the assignment, you get 4 points. And at the end of the semester, if you do all of that, you get an A. We're looking forward to seeing how that works. I think we're out of time. Is that true?
Yes.
But
I
Cindy has a
was more of a
question.
comment, I guess, which is I really appreciate your discussion, both of yours, of integrating sources and the reasons why you document them. Some in the rhetoric department, I've given seminars in athletics, and so often they want you to say, what's going to happen if you plagiarize, you know, all of these punitive things. but you pitch it as empowerment, and I really like your approach, and we try to do that as well, that we give credit to people. You build your ethos by using sources. So I really think that that was an impressive part of the rest of your presentation, which is also impressive.
We're going to develop a side deal with John that will put this slide deck, make it available, so it'll have links to Gen students' projects. It'll have most of the words we just said in the comment box, and then we'll put in a link to the studio. And really, we do welcome you coming by. And we're going to let Kate have the last word.
I just want to know, as a teacher of interpretation of lit, how do you help these incoming students who had preconceived notions that they thought they were just going to sit around and read some books?
I think actually that links back probably to something that we skipped over in the quacking at both of our ends, which is evaluation, which is that I think that John often and I definitely spend a lot of time having students evaluate each other's work. And part of what they do and the grades are based on that too, not totally, but partially. And part of what they do then is talk about, writing is never finished, it's always revision. You can always revise and make it better. I can still go back and find spelling errors in these posts that they've revised 6 times. But then they also start talking to each other about what is good and what is not good, and they're required to make connections with the literature we're reading in class, but they also start making other connections when they're doing the revision. As far as overcoming just the idea, I've often found some resistance at first, but invariably students love these assignments. I make them work really hard, and then they usually get good grades on them because they get to revise and revise and revise and revise and revise. So I haven't had students thus far really complain at the end and say this was ridiculous, we shouldn't have been doing this.
Would you say it has something to do with feeling they had some sense of ownership?
I think so. I think it has a lot to do with the sense of ownership and a lot to do with a new definition of text, which I think we also kind of skipped over, that text includes video and photography, and it builds on the things that they learned in rhetoric about reading media. So they may fear, many of them probably more than look forward to, coming in and just having a bunch of books thrust at them. And many of them then are excited about how the books make connections with other things in their community, in their university life, in their discipline, because remember, none of them are English majors. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you again, John, for running our technology. Yes. I think we can do